2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Don't touch me. I'll beat your brains out.
You believe in miracles? Yes! I mean, you can take a knee and try a 56-yard field goal. This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. Let's get ready to rumble. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. But that's how it goes. California. The big game over Stanford.
I think that the NFL knows what Randy Moss has done with marijuana, and I think the NFL knows what Randy Moss does with marijuana.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me.
Top of the morning. Those of you already on Facebook Live, the millions obviously listening around the world on Blog Talk Radio, live from Hollywood, California. This is Tough Love. I'm Alistair Conrad. Hopefully everybody's having a good Sunday morning thus far. Tons to get to in the next half hour here. And I will start with some quick hitters. Not one hitters, quick hitters. I was watching Washington State beat the shit out of Arizona last night. And at the end of the game, they said something that, took me aback a little bit. But Tracy Claeys is Washington State D coordinator. And Tracy Claeys, for those of Gopher fans out there, Minnesota, people out there, obviously, he was the defensive coordinator for Minnesota under Jerry Kill. And then, once Jerry Kill couldn't coach anymore because of the whole seizure thing, Claeys took over. Obviously, shit hit the fan with the Gopher program and so on and so forth. But Tracy Claeys is a really good D coordinator, and at the moment, they sit 20th in defense for Washington State. And the only reason I bring this up is twofold. Number one, it's cool to see Tracy Claeys land on his feet after the whole Minnesota debacle because a lot of people were talking shit about him, and I don't necessarily think it was his fault. And second off, I love it when a guy can lay down pride and do what's right for the greater whole. And Mike Leach, who didn't do it at Texas Tech by any means, actually hired somebody competent on defense to run the defense. Obviously, Mike Leach can score points, but that was always the problem at Texas Tech and wherever else he landed is their defense was terrible. And so it's good. Like, as it sits right now, Washington State, I think, is 19th in the country in offense and 20th in defense. Washington State is a real team. I was watching them last night, and I'm telling you, they're not bad. Out of all the rivalry games next week, I can't wait to watch the Apple Classic. Washington and Washington State is going to be arguably the best game of the weekend. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see that game. So I like that. Mike Zimmer did it with the Vikings. He's a defensive guy. Hey, what should I do? Get the best offensive guy in the biz. And, he's done that, or one of, so, with Norv Turner and Pat Shurmur and so forth. So, I thought that was really cool. Football yesterday, was pretty interesting. All of the SEC basically played outside of its conference, which was lame, so SEC wasn't much, but Oklahoma State beat West Virginia in just a crazy fun game. I'm not a huge offensive guy. You guys know that. I like defense. Those old Ravens Steelers games of the mid-2000s, I appreciated. But That Washington or West Virginia and Oklahoma State game yesterday in Stillwater was great. West Virginia obviously is bounced from any playoff chatter now. Excuse me, but Ohio State and Maryland went to, I think, triple overtime or double overtime, whatever it was. Maryland quarterback, I'm telling you, bud, like, how do you miss that throw? How do you miss it? You could have beat Ohio State. The guy's sitting there, just right in front of you, and you had to make a 3 or 4 yard pass, and you didn't do it. You didn't do it. I could not believe what I was seeing. But, you know, it happened, and Ohio State moves on, luckily. Central Florida played Cincinnati last night in a game that started off actually pretty good. Cincy obviously, you know, got it handed 38-13. Central Florida beat Cincy last night. You know, my only question is this. First off, by the way, Central Florida, I did not realize, excuse me, has the second best offense in the country, right behind Oklahoma. And Cincinnati had the 6th best defense last night, Michigan being number 1 in the country. And so for Central Florida to put up 38 on Cincinnati, granted it was at home, I still think is pretty impressive. Obviously, the question is, does Central Florida belong in the 4? Not will they. We know that question is no. Central Florida will not make the Final Four unless there's some crazy Armageddon that happens, and that's not happening. So, do they belong in the Final Four? You know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how to answer that question. I guess, you know, look at it like this. If they played in the SEC or Big Ten or Pac-12 or Big 12, would it be different? Would they be undefeated? Would they have won 22 straight? I don't think so. Obviously, you know, if you're in the SEC and you got to play LSU and Bama, I highly doubt Central Florida is winning 22 straight. And quite honestly, are they beating Mississippi State? You know, that's the question. So I love what they're doing. It's fun to watch them. I just don't, you know, I mean, when it's one game, let's just say they go to the New Year's Day or one of the New Year's 6 bowls, which they will, and end up playing Ohio State. You know, on a one game basis, well, yeah, they could possibly beat Ohio State, but going through the grind of a Big Ten season or an SEC season, ACC, whatnot, it takes a lot of time. Yes, it was Mike Leach who put Craig James' kid in the hot box. That was awesome. Yes. God, that's a funny-ass memory. Thank you, Nick. But, you know, I don't know. UCF's a great story. They're doing great things. I just don't think they're one of the top 4 teams in the country. I don't know. I still think it's Alabama and Clemson, Notre Dame, and then it's either Michigan or Georgia. So Michigan sitting at number 1 defensively. I don't know. We'll see. So obviously, bunch of NFL chatter that I'll get to. If anybody wants to chime in, 213-943-3423. 213-943-3423. If you have any football-related questions or NFL or college or Jimmy Butler, Golden State Warriors, whatever. I do want to hit on that real quick. How much time do I have here? Yeah, like 20 minutes. I'm good. You know, it's very rare that you end up seeing a trade that becomes a win-win situation. And, you know, obviously last week, the Minnesota Timberwolves traded Jimmy Butler to, the Philadelphia 76ers. And got back Covington and Saric and, some other stuff. Well, since then, Minnesota has gone 3-0. You can just see that they are happier. A happier team. There's no doubt about it. And they're 3-0. And Karl Anthony Towns is playing well. Wiggins is playing well. Derrick Rose is stepping up and having his best season since, probably 2011, since his MVP year, basically. And it's great. And you can just see them playing better together and not having to walk on the eggshells. Well, and then you look at Philadelphia, and they are 2-1 since the trade, and lost the first one, but then the last two games, Jimmy Butler's first home game, they win. And then last night, not only does he get a game-saving block on Kemba Walker, who, by the way, had 60 points last night in a loss. God, that would suck. Think about how bad that would suck. You score 60 points and you lose. Wow. Pretty sure, and I'm not positive if they lost or not, but I want to say they did. Michael Jordan scored 63 against the Celtics in the 80s in a playoff game, and I want to say they lost that game too. I'm not sure. But so Jimmy Butler not only blocks Kemba Walker's game-winning shot or attempt, but when it goes back to the other end of the court, he hits a three-point dagger to beat whoever the hell they were playing, Charlotte, last night. I mean, Big Jim. That was, again, great win for the Sixers. Great get for the Sixers. Jimmy Butler is thrilled to be there. Loves being there. Minnesota loves that he's gone. This is so much like prostitution. I can't explain it. It's a win-win. And I will explain it real quick so you're not wondering why I said that. In prostitution, it's a perfect business transaction. A guy says, I can't believe all I have to do is give this girl money and we have sex. And the girl's like, I can't believe all I have to do is have sex with this guy and he gives me money. It's the perfect business transaction. And in sports, you rarely see a perfect business transaction and a win-win. That's all I'm saying. And the Sixers-Wolves trade is a win-win, a true win-win. Minnesota Timberwolves are doing well, 3-0. Sixers are, that is going to be, I mean, think about this. Last year at this time, outside of Cleveland, and LeBron, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Cleveland was going to make the finals, and that was going to be all it was. And the rest of the East, Toronto had a great year, but, they couldn't get over the hump. Washington, Celtics obviously were down Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. Fast forward a year, and now all of a sudden Kawhi is on Toronto. They look like the team to beat in the East. Boston has Kyrie and Gordon Hayward back, and they obviously will be formidable come the end. You've got now the Sixers, who, adding Jimmy Butler to go with Simmons and Embiid, who embrace him, unlike Wiggins and Towns did. All of a sudden, now Philly is in that mix. I'm thinking I'm missing one team. And Milwaukee. I still am not taking Milwaukee as serious as others are. I don't know why. I just don't think. And put it this way, in those four teams, I think Philly's last. The rest of the other three, Boston, Philly, and Toronto, I would say they're all 1A, honestly. And then Milwaukee after that. But it was a true win-win trade, which you don't see a lot. I mean, it's kind of cool when that happens and it works out the way it did. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the future for the Timberwolves. Philly is on their way to the playoffs and possibly doing great things. So that was pretty awesome. What else before I get to football? Should I get to football? Oh, yeah. The Draymond Green and Kevin Durant spat. I will say this. I don't know who's to blame, nor do I care. I don't care. I'm just impressed that Draymond Green is still on the Warriors and hasn't worn out his welcome. Like Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson, Terrell Owens, pick out a player who's loud, obnoxious, Randy Moss. You wear out your welcome. Your talent is so great that they keep you for a second or two, and then they get rid of you because you get to be too much of a pain. Marcus Peters, good example. You know, the Chiefs, the kid led the league in turnovers his first 2 years and interceptions, and the Kansas City was like, we don't want to deal with them. You know, you got to be a real piece of shit to be that good and to have somebody be like, you're out. Yeah, Bill Belichick, Randy Moss. It happens. And so it's surprising to me that Draymond is still on the Warriors when it comes to that, like Dennis Rodman style. But, you know, you can tell that winning, even winning gets old and tough to replicate and just stick with status quo when you have the same group of guys. Golden State is still better than everybody, but it's boredom to them right now. And you can see it. They're in team fighting. I don't know what, the extent of Green and Durant, the fallout is going to be. Is it going to affect them so much that they don't win the championship this year? I don't know. I do know Durant's gone. There's no doubt. Durant's gone after this year. Where he goes, who knows? Excuse me. One last thing. Oh, God, I don't know if I should do it right now. Maybe I'll do it at the end of the show. Stay tuned. Don't leave. I have something for the end of the show, and it's a little controversial, but that's just what I do. So anyway, week 11, Vikings, Bears, Seattle. Shocking and surprisingly, I guess, possibly, took care of business Thursday night and beat the Packers for the Vikings, which is really nice of them. Thank you. If you look at Green Bay's remaining schedule, it doesn't, I think they'll go 4-2. But if they go 4-2, that means with the tie, they would be 8-7-1. And I don't think that's playoffs because they have to play at Minnesota, and I want to say at somebody else that's tough. And I don't think they're going to win. So, I think Green Bay's out of it, which is, amazing for Vikings fans. But as for the Vikings, this is a big day. This is obviously the game of the week. Sunday Night Football in Chicago. This is why the Vikings got Kirk Cousins, right? This game is why you paid Kirk Cousins $84 million. Obviously, if all of a sudden playoff time comes and the Vikings are in it, well then that is also why you paid him the money. But the winner of tonight's Vikings-Bears game gets sole possession of first place. Bears are in that position right now, but obviously if they win tonight, that would really solidify their spot in the division, especially with that Packers loss, and then them being a game and a half up on the Vikings with a game in hand makes it difficult for the Vikes. This is why you got Kirk Cousins. Up to this point, Kirk Cousins, it's obvious why or how much better he is than Case Keenum. There's zero doubt about that whatsoever. Has he turned the ball over at some unfortunate times? Yeah, there's no doubt. But he is human. He's not going to play mistake-free. And so, those things, unfortunately, are part of the game. The Bears, second in the league in the sacks, number one in hurries, number one in turnover margin. They rush the passer, obviously, really well. The Vikings, unfortunately, give up the most pressures in the league up to this point. I guess that's the thing that I'm most concerned with and is the most obvious about this game is the offensive line when it comes to keeping the Bears defense at bay in passing downs. I truly believe when you have somebody like Khalil Mack, who is insanely good. I still believe the best thing that you can do is run at him. The Vikings need to be able to run the football today with success. I think Chicago is number 1 in the league against the run. I think the Vikings are 3rd against the run. Vikings have ran the ball decent this year and lately a lot better than the beginning. And so for the Vikings to trust me, Khalil Mack, and I'm not putting him in Lawrence Taylor's, realm, but when you have a guy who's that dominant, you're just not going to stop him. I'm trying to think who it is. You can only hope to contain him. And that is the truth. That's just the truth. Khalil Mack's great. He's awesome. Like, what do you want me to say? But you still have to be able to neutralize him somewhat. You cannot let that guy just get to 100. You got to keep him at like 70, 75. And how do you do that? You tire him out. You run at him. And you run at those 2 D tackles. Get them tired. Make them work on every down. So come the end of the 3rd quarter and into the 4th quarter, you can dominate them, and you can hopefully tire them out. So running the football is paramount today for the Vikings, and you run it at Khalil Mack. That is just what has to happen today. You have to be able to run it at Khalil Mack. Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray, who I think Latavius Murray is as important today as Dalvin Cook. Are they going to be utilized the same? I doubt it. I think Dalvin's probably going to get the majority of the run today, which is fine, because it's not as though he can't run between the tackles. He gives you a definite added dimension of being able to bounce it and have lateral movement comparatively to Murray, who's a lot more north-south. But both of those two, along obviously with the offensive line, creating space for those guys, wearing out that Chicago defense, who, by the way, isn't big. It's not like they're, just got 2 huge anchors. Goldman, and I'm trying to think of the other D tackle. They're not the biggest guys. I mean, they're not small, obviously, but tiring them out is what is going to help you win this game. Obviously, not turning the ball over is going to help more than anything. If the Vikings can limit turnovers today, and I'm talking 1. 0 is, best case scenario and wishful thinking. If the Vikings can limit it to 1 turnover today, I think they'll have a good chance. Defensively, the Vikings need to keep trending what they have been doing. And they have, and I want to say it's since the Eagles game in week 5, I want to say is when that was, Vikings have one of the top defenses, and they now sit at, I think, I don't know, let's just say middle of the pack, but they were pretty bad to start with. And now they've simplified, they're doing better. Chicago's offense is unique. They've got playmakers, but it's not household name playmakers. It's, Allen Robinson is good. Tariq Cohen is good. Trey Burton is decent. They've just got a bunch of, people who do well in space. Kind of like Kansas City, a poor man's Kansas City, which isn't shocking, being that Matt Nagy, their coach, came from Kansas City as the offensive coordinator, but that is what they do. They throw it around, and Trubisky, if you play man on Trubisky, he can beat you with the legs. And that's, the Vikings saw that last year, and now, fast forward a year, Trubisky looks so much more comfortable. It's amazing what can happen with a coach who brings in a different dynamic. We saw it with Los Angeles Rams. And Jared Goff with Jeff Fisher, Jared Goff with Sean McVay. We went from talking about Jared Goff like, oh, this guy's a bust, to, oh, wow, Jared Goff's pretty good. So, you know, when you have right coaching and put your guys in the right position, well, now you're seeing what Chicago is. And then, obviously, defensively, you add a Khalil Mack, and they're doing pretty well. I still think, you know, Kirk Cousins and that offense, you got Diggs, you got Thielen. Offensively, you can, I think, have your, no, not have your way. I think that's stupid. I shouldn't say that. I think offensively, obviously running the ball is paramount, but you still have Diggs and Thielen. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the one place on the Bears defense, in my opinion, that's not as dominant, obviously, as their front seven, and that's their secondary. Eddie Jackson is insane, mind you. Insane. Safety from Alabama. Really good. Kyle Fuller is a decent corner. But that's just two, you know, and so it depends. If they can get pressure on Cousins, that obviously helps. If Cousins has time, well, rock and roll. Bears are number one in points off turnovers. Okay, so they're at 89 points off of turnovers, which leads the league by a wide margin. That is how you beat them, is by not turning the ball over. Now, keep in mind, that's obvious, right? It's just common sense, but that is just the way it needs to go. This is at Soldier Field. This is a huge game when it comes to atmosphere. And how are you going to cope with the atmosphere of Soldier Field tonight? I think that is more important than anything. These are the intangibles that the nerds don't want to accept and talk about, because it doesn't factor into numbers. But the crowd noise, just the Sunday night football factor, there are intangibles that go into the game that are going to be a big deal tonight, and those are two of them. And so hopefully, you know, Mike Zimmer does a great job of getting everybody amped up just enough to play within themselves, not let the crowd and momentum sway that much, because that's going to be, you know, huge. If you give up a sack, yeah, live to play another down. Strip sack, different story. Interception, different story. Fumble by a running back, different story. All those things that can feed in to the momentum of that squad, those are the things that you're just going to have to limit. And defensively, I think the Vikings are going to be okay. Danielle Hunter is obviously playing crazy. Everson Griffin is now, getting back into the fold. Linval Hungry Joseph is going, he's going to be there. Sheldon Richardson might be the wild card tonight. Think about that. That front four is really, really
90 seconds.
Holy cow, 90 seconds. That's it. So, anyway, I think the Vikings win tonight. I really do. Lastly, there was a post by my friend sent me a deal about and this was like 15 or 16, a transgender MMA fighter. A dude who switched over to a chick and then was fighting as a chick. So essentially, it was a dude kicking the shit out of all these women. How is this fair? She sent it because there was a funny thing, where it's like a commercial where it's like, well, she's a guy, so, but it's crazy. There was a transgender wrestler down in Texas. Same exact situation. That'd be like me going out and just kicking the shit out of women. Only I'd go to jail. But now because it's transgender, it's okay? I tell you what, I don't care what you want to be. I don't care. I give a shit. Just stay out of sports. Don't ever think that's okay. If you want to be a lesbian and fight other lesbians, great. If you want to be transgender and fight other transgenders, Great. Leave it out of sports. Have an awesome Sunday fun day. I'm Alistair. This is Tough Love. Drive fast. Take chances. Bye, guys.